So I'd say most people are very curious on what are the qualities and traits that make great coaches, great leaders great, at least the people listening to this podcast. Now, instead of asking what are the common traits that make coaches great, maybe it's a better question, or at least a different question, to look at great coaches and ask what is unique about them that makes them great? And what can I learn from it? Today's conversation with New York Times journalist for The Athletic, Rustin Dodd and Elise Devlin, I think it's more answering that question. It's let's look at some of the greatest coaches and leaders that they've studied and they've interviewed, spent time with. What is unique about them that has made them so special? If you missed our last conversation, I have to say it was a lot of fun and hugely valuable. So many good insights. So be sure to check it out. Welcome back to the Coaching Culture Podcast, the podcast to help you grow as a leader and build a better culture. My name is JP Nerbun. I'm an executive coach, facilitator, and author. My most recent book, The Culture Captain, the 4-level framework to know yourself, lead others, and lead the team. It's out now. In this book, it's not just a bunch of stories of great leaders. It's actually built on the work that I've done with hundreds of athletes as they've developed their own leadership. So you can get a copy for you and your athletes today on Amazon.com. Mm-hmm. What's the best part about the work you get to do?
I would just say getting to meet, I guess, these people and tell their stories. I feel so fortunate all the time to be able to do this, but I think the best part is just getting to have actual conversations with them and feel like you get to, it's like a window inside their brain, a lot of these conversations, because they're deep and they're philosophical, and you're talking to them about things that work for them and experiences that they've gone through, and you get to connect with them. And then I think the best part is sharing it with other people to benefit. Like the best feeling I think for me is like when people really see themselves in the person that I'm telling the story about and their experience, and then they can actually like take something and really use it and benefit. I think that's the best part about it. I don't know about you, Rustin.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's probably the feedback that we get from readers. I think whenever you're doing a story, you're trying to kind of lock in on the universal part, or what's relatable, or what you feel is like relatable. And so when you get that like feedback from a reader that says, like, oh, I really connected to this because of this or that, I think that is really just like, it's like, okay, that's exactly what we were going for. And so I think that's the best part about that job, is when you feel like you kind of found a story that you knew would be kind of universal or relatable, and you were able to tell it in a fashion that like connected with people. So getting that feedback is probably, I think, the coolest part about our job.
Yeah, I love that you both have a sense of purpose in what you do. Like, I think that there you understand that it's more than just a job for the both of you, and that comes through in your writing. All right, let's pull from some of your learnings. I have some other questions for you. Just like when it comes to great leaders, we've talked about how leadership is different. It looks different. I think Rustin, you started off with that, but like, what would you say is maybe a common trait of all great leaders that from your perspective?
Yeah, JP, I was thinking about this when you asked the question, because it was like a really good question, but I felt like, those initial things about anything you kind of write down kind of feels like a little like cliche sometimes. It's like, oh, they give you confidence, or they make you feel a certain way, or they're great at communicating. There is an authenticity to them, like all these things that we kind of hear and talk about all the time. And I've been thinking about it in this sort of framework, just covering more and more coaches and thinking about them as leaders. Like, I think that there is the type of coach that can make people work harder, which is difficult, but I think that's like the easier thing to do. And I think there's like the kind of coach that makes people better. And I think those are like two different things. I think that being a coach that can get your players to work harder is easier than being a coach that can make them better. And I think when I think about coaches that really like make players better, obviously there's the tactical component and like all of that and putting people in position to succeed and like all of that stuff. But I think there's, at the most base level, it's kind of giving people confidence. And I think that is a skill that is so hard to like kind of isolate out, because it's such a kind of charisma driven, or like, the, to use a cliche, like the it factor, or whatever. There's something about the personality that is able to give players confidence and to make them feel, like seen, and
Mhm.
to make them feel valued. And I think that is like, if that is probably like the hardest thing to sort of figure out what that is. But I really think that is maybe like the most important part about being a leader from like a coach standpoint.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it doesn't just end at they're maybe a better athlete. It's they're a better
Yeah,
human, and that will support them in their performance, right?
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I just think, yeah. I mean, you can push people, and they'll work harder, but does that make them like a better player, like on the floor or on the court or field or whatever?
Mhm.
It's just something I've kind of been thinking about, because I think, there's the way coaches kind of treat players, or the way they coach players, it's probably changed, like, generation change, like we were talking about the old school thing like earlier. All of those things kind of change, but I do think that there's like, just giving players confidence is like such an important thing.
Mm. How about you, Elise?
I would say a common theme that pops up in all the conversations I have with like some of these really successful coaches is the importance of getting to know your players. Like in order to bring out the best of in them, you have to know them really well and know what will work for them, I guess. And I think like everyone's different and they respond to different feedback and different exercises and tools and experiences. And I think if you the better you know a player, or a teammate too, the better you understand them and the better you'll know where to go to help them reach their potential. I don't know, it's just something that I think about a lot because like I talked to Lisa Bluder and she would have these deep conversations with Caitlin Clark, and then she would go home and just like read through her leadership books and trying to find like lines that Caitlin said that would make sense. And she's like, okay, well then if she's saying this, like I have to do that. Like really understanding how they operate is important. And same thing with Dan Quinn, head coach of the Commanders. He still does to this day PowerPoint presentations. So like everyone has to put together a PowerPoint presentation of their most impactful life experiences and explain like how it impacted them and why they are the way they are. And then he's able to it sounds silly, but like during practice, he's like, "Oh, well, they're this way because of that, and so like maybe this explanation will click better for them." I don't know if that makes sense, but it's something that pops up a lot with coaches, and I feel like um, it sounds maybe cliche too in the way that like, "Oh, get to know your people, get to know the people around you," and but it kind of goes back to the handwritten letters thing too, like small little acts of acknowledgement too, like remembering a date about someone. I don't know, it causes you to even subconsciously like want to be a better player for that coach because you know that you feel cared about and paid attention to and you want to I guess I don't know if any of this makes sense, but that's
No, it
that's
does.
I think what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. Yeah, I think it would be
Yeah,
that.
I think about, I was thinking about these two coaches before, uh because I've written a little bit about them, but they do feel like that they're right in the line between kind of using kind of the old school, but also really understanding the people driven aspect of it. And it's like Dan Campbell and Mike Vrabel. And I think the way they are able to push people in the ways that, a coach would have, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and not really like not sacrificing any of that, but they're able to do that because they care so much about the relationship and building that trust and really like getting to know people. And I think that's like sort of, I mean, there's probably other examples. But I just think of, you think of coaches like, like a Steve Kerr or like a Pete Carroll, who feel like, oh yeah, they're really like locked into the relationship aspect. And I don't know, maybe Pete Carroll fits in this too, but you don't think of them as necessarily as like the real intense push kind of coach. But I think Dan Campbell just stands out to me as that kind of right in that perfect like sweet spot of being able to sort of to do both things.
Just that high support, high challenge from those guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the stronger your relationship, then the easier it is to have a tough conversation, which is another thing that people talk about. We did this piece on Greg Popovich, speaking of him, and tough conversations go a long way. And the better relationship you have with someone, it's easier and it sticks with you, I guess, a little bit better when you have that relationship and you're having that tough conversation. That's something that Tara Vanderveer, the legendary Stanford women's basketball coach, that's something that she believes in too. She's like, you have to have tough conversations with your players, and you can't do that, and it won't resonate with them unless you have a good relationship with them. So there's a lot of things that trickle out of that too.
Yeah, that relational aspect, so important. And I like how, you know, we've mentioned like such a range of coaches, right? From like Steve Kerr, who's probably a little more calm. You look at Brad Stevens during his day, Dusty May, just kind of very level, even keeled. And then you have these other coaches that can probably have a bit wider range of emotions in the sideline, but yet the relationship helps them to understand that it comes from a place of care. Yeah, I think so often, I even see it with coaching, my daughter's team, for instance, right? There is, these young girls there and other adults can be so quick, the coaches to jump to a place of judgment. "Oh, she's just not committed." I'm like, she's 10. Like, and who knows what's going on in her life, right? Like, you just like get curious and you try to understand them as best you can, knowing that obviously the context is different than like whether you're an NFL coach or you're, Caitlin Clark's coach. You have all this time, whereas kids show up, they're there for an hour. You don't have as much time to get to know them, but at the relationship component seems to be the common thread of all great coaches, right?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
I think so.
So these questions are not to put you on the spot, but they are to like, you could pick a coach. You don't have to pick like, it has to be the coach. So I have a few like, who would you want to, all right? And the first is like, who would you want to be coached by, right? Like if you could pick one coach that becomes your coach back in the day.
Ooh, that's a good question. Hmm. I mean, maybe it's because I just mentioned her, but Tara Vanderveer is someone that I've talked to a couple of times, and the way that her perspective and the way that she views life in general, I think it'd be really cool and an honor to get coached by her. I'll lock her in. I'm gonna lock Tara in.
Why her so much? Yeah, like give me what would be the best part about being coached by her, from your perspective.
I think the relationships that she still has with her players is like a testament to her coaching. I mean, they're still like, she was telling me they FaceTime her all the time and they look to her for advice even now, years and years later after getting coached by her, because they helped, or she helped them so much that they believe that she can still help them through anything in life. And I just think that a lot of what we're talking about, she at least from the conversations I've had with her, she definitely represents a lot of that stuff. So like the tough conversations, the curiosity, the optimism, and getting to know your players. So I don't know, a lot of these things that we're talking about have come up in our conversations, the ones that I've had with her. And she's talked to me a lot about I think things that she views now differently in life too. Like she has a lot of hobbies and different forms of recovery that like seem to click better for her. So she's really involved in this space and believes in the power of these tools and just the mental side of sports too. So I think it's been really cool to listen to her talk about that too.
Love that. How about you, Rustin?
Well, I'm probably like a bunch of names are going through my head. I think I love covering the Brad Stevens and Dusty Mays of the world because I'm fascinated by like their basketball minds, like the way they think the game, and like they're such basketball nerds in a way that like I think I would really like gravitate towards as a reporter. But like I actually think if I would I might sound strange, but like I would almost rather be coached by like a Tom Izzo. I think I love playing for like that like level of intensity. And I was trying to think of another kind of like archetype like him that in the last 25 years like a Tom Izzo on the basketball side that I would love to play for, but he was the one that came to mind. Like just like I love the just like the level of intensity, and so that was the one that I actually think I
Hmm.
would thrive in playing for a coach like that rather than somebody who was like a little bit more calm.
It's so interesting that people have such different experiences there. Like where I played for a Tom Izzo type coach in high school, and he crushed me. It's like it broke me so bad. Couldn't hack it. So I'm much more like Steve Curry. He's like, yeah, good pat on the back there. How about play with? Like if you could have any teammate from all the people you've gotten to interview, who would you want to play with?
Shane Battier. I don't know why that popped in my head. I think he'd be awesome to be a teammate of and with and learn from. He's another one that I mean, everything that he says, I feel like there's a lesson in it somehow. So I think I'd go
What
with
stood out
him.
to you
Yeah.
most about Shane Battier
Um,
as a teammate?
I mean, as a teammate, I think he was so selfless. Like his whole thing was like being a glue guy, but I feel like he was trying to. He also like he was pulling a lot from his life too. Like he was telling me like he picks up trash in the park, and that somehow like correlated to his performance. Like, and I think like he just I don't know. He everything that he wanted to do on the court, he decided to do in the rest of his life too, and then it all came together. So I think just little like frameworks and mindsets like that was really interesting when I talked to him. And
Trash in
he
the
just
park.
he
Tell me
yeah.
about that. Like he just
Well, yeah, I think he's like, if you're gonna be this person on the court, you should be it in your life, and then and you'll turn into it. Like it's almost like I don't want to say it's like
Mm.
fake it till you make it, but just if you're gonna try and be this kind of player, be that kind of person too, and it'll stick. But he just I think he's awesome too because I love someone that just cares a lot. I think it's so cool to care. It's so cool to
Mhm.
put so much effort into everything. Like picking up trash, like that's just shows how much effort he put into literally every single thing. And he focuses on little things too, like where he's like when you go to a coffee shop and they get your order wrong and it makes you late for work, like that's a test in your day. Like you should never like just little
Mhm.
tiny things and moments throughout his day. He's always thinking of this stuff. Like his mind is so fascinating to me. So I
Mhm.
think, yeah, I go with Shane Battier.
Nice. I love that one. And I love his podcast is great too. He's quite
Yes.
funny on that. The guys are great. Rustin, how about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I think to keep it simple, like somebody at like a superstar level, I think um, Steph Curry is maybe the best I've seen at combining like superstar talent with really kind of like humble leadership.
Mhm.
And I think there's a reason why he's thought of the way he is. And so I think he would be, just like amazing to kind of play with. I was just thinking from like a pure basketball standpoint, like who's like the rebounder, gritty guy who sets all the screens. Like I'll give a shout out to like Nick Collison, who went to the University of Kansas and was like Mr. Thunder down in Oklahoma City. I love playing with those type of players that like they do all the dirty work and they're incredibly
Mhm.
smart players. So that on the non superstar level, I'll say someone like Nick Collison.
And
I
did you
have
get to
one more
interview Nick?
too.
What's
Sorry.
that?
Did you get to interview Nick yet?
Oh, I've years ago I spoke with him, but it was when I was more around the University of Kansas basketball program. But it's
Okay.
been a long time.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Elise.
Sorry, I cut you guys off.
Yeah.
One more, Jared McCain, before I forget. He's another one that I feel like he'd be awesome
Tell
to
us
be
more.
teammates with. Just his energy. He also like his energy, but also what he's doing. He's another guy that does a lot and cares a lot. Like he reads The Inner Game of Tennis, which is a book that we've talked about a
Yeah.
ton within this job, obviously. But I think being around that kind of energy is really helpful. Similar to Steph Curry at practice and the stories that we've heard about him, just that energy. I also like someone to push me. Like I feel like as a swimmer in college, I like the older teammates that were really harsh on me and held me accountable and pushed me really hard. I respond well to that. But I do think I think being around Jared's light energy and his how much he cares
Mhm.
and he's very uplifting. I think that'd be cool.
So you mentioned the inner game of tennis. I'm really interested. Do you know that obviously the inner game of tennis read by a lot of great athletes, Steve Kerr, coaches. Do you know its impact in the corporate world? Do you know the story
A little
behind?
bit. A
Yeah.
little bit. Rustin would probably know more than me. You might be better for this answer, but yes, I do know about that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you take this.
Well, I'm gonna butcher the story. So, but I do know that Timothy Galway was really connected with this sort of godfather of executive coaches
Yes.
who you can tell me the name, but he
Sir
was came
Thomas,
from,
Sir John Whitmore. Yeah.
yeah, that came from the
Yeah.
racing world, and that's about all I know. So you can you can tell but yeah, I do know that.
Well, it's kind of a cool story because I'm curious. I'll share a little. So yes, Tim Galloway writes this book, Inner Game of Tennis. Whitmore reads the book, is like, oh my gosh, he's kind of in the racing world, but he's also in the corporate world business, and so he flies over, spends like, you know, weeks with Galloway learning and all that, and then he kind of goes back, and then he's like, oh, this is all about like leadership. Like this isn't just about sports, and so then he writes Coaching for Performance, and they start Performance Consultants, which is the start of executive coaching, which now is a billion-dollar industry. The funny thing I always think about this, and maybe it kind of ties back to a little bit of what Rustin, me and you were kind of discussing, I think via email when you originally reached out, which is I find it very interesting that executive coaching became so popular in corporate world, but now it's only started to really come into sports back, right? From a sports leadership perspective, where front office people and head coaches are now getting coaches for their coaching. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it 100% does. I think about this a lot in other ways too, where the corporate world before the 1970s and 1980s really looked a lot different. And it was really, into the 70s and 80s that the corporate world really kind of looked to the sports world in terms of trying to build culture. Like that term culture from a business standpoint really didn't exist in the business world until, the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. And that was really kind of looking at like, oh, okay, this is more than just like a spreadsheet. This is more than just, like widgets or whatever, that we can build a company culture. And that looked much more like, like a sports team. And I just think it's kind of funny how these two worlds sort of feed off of each other and kind of go back and forth. Because, even in the 90s and the 2000s in the sports world kind of started looking more and more like the business world, with some of the ideas that people brought in, like about optimization or efficiency or like all these things. So it's just kind of funny how they build off each other.
Well, I think you obviously both write about a lot of things that athletes do to be at their best. Have you seen what are you seeing that coaches do to be at their best? Because I think that's the coach-centered approach is obviously something really important to me. It's just like, how do we help them? Because they're performers as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be preaching to the choir here, I guess. But and when we just sort of we're talking about this, but the amount of coaches who do have that speak to other people and realize that they sort of have to be, like at their best, and to be able to, I just think about when you're around somebody with incredible energy, people just feed off of it. And I think, like I think about what a burden it must be to be a coach, to be the one who has to be giving out that energy day after day to so many people. And I mean, that sounds exhausting. I think about like how like crabby I am day to day, like, and then if I was trying to coach, 10 or 12 other people, I mean, they'd be feeding off my energy and it would be terrible. But so I think, coaches kind of like need that support system to sort of
Mhm.
be at their best and stay, you know, positive, stay, like keep the energy good. And I don't know. I think that's maybe the simplest way to put it. But I do think that, the more and more you talk to coaches, the more they realize this and they're like seeking out resources, to be that way.
Mhm.
Yeah. And going off of that, I would say too, just taking ownership. Like when you are crabby and you aren't being a good example, just like owning up to it goes a long way too, I've noticed, and just being honest. And because I think the word I think a couple coaches have used is like hypocritical. Like they can't stand up there and preach all this stuff and not be it themselves. But if they aren't, just owning up to it and showing that they're human too and they're learning goes a long way too, I think, for players. So I would say that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you added that because, to Rustin's point, you have to have people to help build into you to help you be at your best, but you're never going to be perfect at your best. And when you take ownership, it
Uh-huh.
tends to build more trust with the athletes, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, okay, he owned his shit, so we can own ours, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah.
Few more questions before I let you all go. You've been an amazing guest, by the way, so thank you. We're loving this conversation.
Thank
All right,
you.
so we talked about people with great energy, um, you know, that bring that make, they're enjoyable to be around. I'm curious, of all the people you've interviewed, who would you invite to dinner and why?
You have such good questions. I have to think about these. Who would I invite to dinner? Out of who we've interviewed, so who we've
Yeah,
already,
yeah.
or anybody
Yeah, it's
who
just
we've
somebody you're
interviewed.
like, man, I just love that conversation with that person. I want to I'd love to have a, be out for dinner with them,
Yeah.
I feel like I need like a spreadsheet of my stories here to just
I know.
of
Yeah.
people. Um,
See, I always joke with my family. We always say like, okay, if you want anybody to get, we do those question games, and I always say like, I'm inviting Hugh Jackman. Not that Hugh Jackman's an athlete, and not that I've ever interviewed Hugh Jackman, but I just heard like he's a great guy to have over for your dinner because if he comes to your house, story is that he insists that he'll do the dishes, and I always do the dishes. So I'd love Hugh Jackman to be at dinner.
That's funny.
Yeah, but he'd also probably
I
sing, dance, do that because he's fun like that. So, anyways, yeah, who would be fun to be with?
He'd be a great guest.
Yeah,
I have a couple. I think one, I didn't actually interview him, but I've received a voice memo from The Rock before, and it
good
was like
guy.
a 15-minute long voice memo, and it was I could listen to that every morning when I wake up and like feel inspired and motivated.
That's
So I
so
thought
real.
it was super
Yeah.
interesting, and he was very insightful. Um, and so I would like to actually like sit down, I guess, and have a conversation with him because I think he's really interesting. But also, I feel like I keep going back to him. But I just every conversation I've had with Michael Phelps, I've always left it feeling like I've learned something new about him,
Mhm.
about life, about his career, about just everything. So I think he's always interesting, and it'd be fun to talk to him and sit down and learn even more because it's like never ending. Every time I talk to him, I'm like I could talk to you forever about all this stuff. And I'm gonna
okay.
keep thinking because I feel like another one too that I really enjoyed. Jordan Childs. I interviewed her a while ago, and she has great energy and has obviously been through a lot of experiences where she's learned a lot too. She sticks
Hmm.
out too. Sorry, I'm just like all over the place. I have to like
You're having a whole
piece
dinner
back all.
party. It's all right. You got
Yeah,
the whole party going here.
I'm hosting a dinner party, and I would love to invite all these people.
I
Rustin, who are you
I'll,
thinking?
I'm just thinking of two names off the top of my head, and so it would be two different ones if in like an hour probably. But if I really wanted like a nourishing kind of deep conversation, I probably would. I'm asking Shaka Smart to go out to dinner. I find
Wow.
whenever I speak to him, he's so many ideas, but in a really like deep, thoughtful way. And it just like whenever I speak to him, like it does feel like a nourishing kind of conversation. If I want the like kind of pure, kind of like live wire entertainment with also a lot of great basketball talk, I actually really enjoy speaking with Jeff Van Gundy.
Hmm.
And he's like just such a like funny guy who also like knows so much about basketball, and obviously has so many amazing NBA stories, and he's just the kind of guy who he can just like talk to anybody. And so it would be, I don't know, maybe both Van Gundy brothers for like, I've never actually spoken to Stan, but that those were the two names that just, if the two different kind of vibes you were going for.
I love it. Yeah, I had a conversation with Shaka Smart there last year, and yeah, one of my favorite guests I've ever had. Just authentic, deep. Just yeah, you can really take a lot from him. I like the word nourishing. That was definitely what I
Yeah.
felt.
I would say one more that I'm thinking of is Lynn Swan.
Um,
I interviewed him, and I learned a lot from him too. I don't know. And now I'm gonna like you said, Rustin, I feel like an hour from now I'm gonna think like, oh, I should have said this person, but he's another one that pops in my head.
oh man, you guys are like serious name dropping today. All these great people you talked to.
I was
That's
thinking about
just
that. Like, I hope we're not coming off as like
no. That's why I want to ask you. You guys have these amazing experiences, getting to talk to all these people, and you get to share that, and you share it so beautifully with the world through your writing. Here's my last question for the both of you. If you could give a piece of advice to a coach out there and an athlete out there, just what's the one piece of advice that you would give to every coach in the world?
Oh, that is a good question again. I know we kept going back to being curious, but I would think like, I guess it's because I'm thinking of her again, Tara Vanderveer. She was like, you should try and find a lesson or just be curious about literally every little thing. And it doesn't have to be your experience. It can also be, as a coach, like if you're watching another team and you're watching another, like sit down and think, okay, what would I learn from this? And I think learning from your experiences, but also other people's experiences, and just being like a lifelong learner, I think goes a really long way. So I would say just staying curious and, optimistic. I know it's hard because it's like easier said than done, but optimism is really contagious. And something that I heard recently in an interview was when you are losing a lot of energy and you have like not a lot left, take what you do have left and give it on to other people, and it'll come back to you like multiplied. And I think that's important too. So even if you don't feel optimistic in the moment, just fake it and then it'll turn real. So I don't know. Some of that is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if I feel qualified to be giving coaches advice.
Yeah.
But and aside from, please return every request for interview, that would be my number one. um, I heard John Harbaugh say that he had a piece of advice about confronting everything but never anyone. And I always thought that sounded like a really interesting way to like, trying to foster sort of like some level of accountability in your team about, confronting, issues, but never people. And so that comes to mind. And the most like simple, basketball related one I always think about is this sounds so simple, but I love coaches who, when somebody is open, they yell, shoot the ball. Like when like that feeling of, it sounds so simple, but that direction of basically like almost saying like, shoot it. It's some level of like trust, putting confidence in the person. And I mean, like, as in my very unaccomplished career, like there's no better feeling than when your coach yells, shoot it. And I always I think about like that. It's sort of maybe like a metaphor that's kind of valuable.
I love that. I'm also curious, like from a psychological level, did you not get to hear that shoot it that often enough, as a player? It's like, don't shoot it, Rustin, just pass the ball,
Well,
and so
maybe that was the case, but I don't know. I mean, sometimes you hear coaches yell shoot it in a frustrated way because somebody's like turning down shots or whatever. But
yeah.
I think maybe coaches don't yell shoot it because they don't want to get in a player's head or whatever, like in the middle of a
Yeah.
game. But there's something I love that, just like when I hear that, it
I believe in you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
it's that belief. I believe. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for coming on, sharing your story, sharing your passion for writing, and sharing your purpose behind it. And you are qualified, the both of you, to give advice, to share advice, because you're having all these conversations with coaches. So it's hugely valuable. So thank you.
Thank you, JP. This has been so much fun. And thank you for what
Yeah.
you do too. This is really
Yeah,
important.
thanks, Trippy. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's it for my conversation with Rustin and Elise. We've linked some of my favorite articles of theirs in the notes. You can get the notes to this and every episode of the podcast by going to tocculture.com. If you found today's episode valuable, please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with another coach or leader. Until next time, thank you for listening in.